This week on Hermitcraft.
Hello, Xisuma! I think I terribly missed.
Welcome to the Hermitcraft recap. My name is PixelRiffs, our writer is ZloyXP, and before we jump into the events and mishaps, we thought we'd get you up to speed with the burning downward spiral of chaos that is Hermitcraft Tag. Last time we left off with Cubfan being slapped in the face by Tango. Well, this time it's Xuma's turn to wear the dunce head, which is a result of both Cub splashing him with a slowness 6 resistance 4 potion, and Xisuma misunderstanding a recently implemented rule. Said rule clearly states that you can't tag a person while you're live streaming, only when you're recording with the intention to put the footage in a Hermitcraft episode. Go figure, someone is actually making an effort to keep this whole thing together and make it at least somewhat trackable. Keeping tabs on the game will become even easier soon because Xisuma has mentioned that he's planning on building an IT headquarters to be populated and run by evil clowns, I guess. Upon being tagged, one would go to this helpful establishment and place a sign commemorating one's humiliation. Needless to say, that makes our job much easier, seeing as how now we have to keep track of our own recap tag game. Speaking of which,
Captain Planet saves the day and makes all pollution go away. Captain Doc. Oh my god.
thanks to your contribution, we managed to successfully rustle Doc's jimmies. Now he has nominated Jevin to be our next victim, and we think it'd be fun to strike him where it hurts. So head down to his video in the iCards and comment, Impulse has more diamonds than you while you're there. We don't actually know if this is true. He's just been bragging about his booty through the whole episode.
Thanks for that. I was chilling and all of a sudden my comment section was exploding and I was like, oh my god, what happened? Is something wrong? What did I do? And as to Captain Planet, I was like, what the heck's going on?
And with all that out of the way, let's take a look at all the events and mishaps that occurred on the Hermitcraft server this week. Starting with Jevin, and he ain't afraid of no dog.
You guys, he's been threatening me with violence. Can you believe that? I can. It's Doc, I'm not surprised.
Then again, a doctor is not that hard of an opponent, just eat an apple every day. Outside of rolling in diamonds, Jevin has been going pretty hard on another resource found in the depths of the world, redstone. Having added a pumpkin and melon farm to his Basement of Wonders and a minecart summoner to the Skelly Railway, Jevin heads out to his mega build area. And let me tell you, this week, the mega really hits the fan. To soothe his newfound appetite for iron, Jevin swears to build an entire array of iron farms, at a reasonable distance away from each other, yet still in the loading range of a player. It's such an epic undertaking that he even runs out of cobblestone and has to assemble an AFK farm for it. The remainder of his building blocks go towards a different goal, building a potion factory warehouse in the industrial district. Red brick and stone bricks again. The server might just run out of river clay by this point.
Look at these people and you say the NHO is the evil guys.
Which makes yet another thing rivers have run out of because they were already lacking in fish. In fact, the entire server seemed to have a shortage of marine life, which Doc M took it upon himself to investigate on behalf of the NHO. Now, while we strongly suspect shenanigans, he points the finger at Cub and Scar, asking them to help clean up the pollution that the dead coral facility is leaking into the centre of the shopping district. And just like that, the fish magically recover. Although that one puffer still kind of has a death wish.
I think we could...
Oh, man.
And speaking of death wishes, Doc also seems to have one, both for himself and for everyone else on the server, because this week he builds a theme park ride of literal nightmares. It's a custom dungeon which drops the hermit, unarmed and unarmored, into a cave full of jump scares and name-tagged phantoms swooping down from the ceiling. Getting the phantoms in there is a challenge in itself, but once they're in place and the cave is decorated, complete with pufferfish player detectors and armor stand jump scares, it's an experience the other hermits will be dying to try. Stress Monster has a winged terror of her own to deal with.
Everyone welcome Harold to the group.
Despite having to juggle both chickens and children, she's been putting in work out there in the Bergs, with the mysterious floating platform starting to take shape into something pretty epic. Terraforming the packed ice mountains to meet it halfway, Stress adds a metric ton of detail to the wall and explains that it's going to be half fort, half sci-fi alien thing. Well, at least that's that cleared up. After a visit to the shopping district leaves her eager to start her own business, she also decides to bring a slice of ice over for the hermits to buy, so she transforms a coastal hill into a towering iceberg and carves a shop into the peak, selling ice, packed ice, blue ice, and snow. She'll soon be making a cool profit. Another couple of shops open their doors, or trapdoors, or feet. This week, one of those is Zombie Cleo's Diorama Rama. In a building made almost entirely out of trapdoors, you can now order custom armor stand powered decorations for your interiors, exteriors, and cemeteries.
Do you need an action sequence to fill some shelves? Do you have a murder to solve and its subsequent haunting? Welcome to Diorama Rama.
The rate of 1 diamond per stand might get a bit too pricey when ordering bespoke items to decorate shelves, but the pizzazz and not having to deal with the book of commands yourself is way worth it. An even better showcase of her puppetry skills than the one in the shop is the kitchen of Cleo's Juggernaut ship. She actually started tinkering with it last week, but we neglected to mention it because we knew it would come up this time, and because our writer might still have a bit of a grudge. Anyway, it's nice that her crew is well fed now that the sails are installed properly and the ship is actually sailing somewhere. The other new shop on the block is Xisuma Void's Cub O's U shop, which makes all kinds of sense when you don't think about it. Having finished the very theme parky entrance into the modern district, basically ripped from Roller Coaster Tycoon, X felt that the shopping area could use a statue of Cub Fan overlooking it. Luckily, he already had something to sell there, a pack of IOU notes Xisuma got from Cub Fan a while ago. Now, for the low price of 8 diamonds, you can outsource a random task to Cub, if you manage to convince him to cooperate, that is. And while Cub was out there swapping the sign for Cub owns you as if that would fix anything, Xisuma actually went out and got another pack of IOU notes, this time from Tango.
Well, I literally just sold my soul to the devil, I think.
Favors from Cub might come in handy later, seeing as how investigation of a mysterious spacecraft crashed in a jungle leads Cub and Scar to rediscover their mischievous alter egos. Right out of the gate, they Thanos it up and banish half the whitelist from the Season 6 island. And not the half that wouldn't fight back, we might add. Their target list has people like Mumbo Jumbo, Impulse SV, and Iskall in it.
These fools. And I think they know better than to start a prank war with me, because they won't win. They won't win. I mean, Ice Princess, that was cute. That was good, but I don't think they want 8,000 anvils dumped on their head, right? Right? No, I don't think so. Bring it on, fellas, bring it on.
Those are all heavy hitters, and for once, the Vex heads might have actually bitten off more than they can chew. Which is a shame. After all, this did cost them everything. This is much different from Cub's non-convex behaviour, where he's actually quite helpful to the server, not to mention the ever-expanding redstone noodles of his and Iskall's Guardian farm, serving now as the main XP source on the server. Cub has started work on a dolphin-based super speed highway for swimmers. Thanks to the dolphins trapped in the rings and the dolphin's grace effect they apply as you pass them, one can swim at speeds rivaling elytra with no equipment required. Too bad that even when name-tagged, the bottlenose mammals have a habit of disappearing for no good reason. Impulse is one of the first hermits to snatch up an IOU from the statue of Cub, although he considers saving it for Vex insurance. He's certainly got the diamonds to spare, as he's been making plenty of pocket change on the microtransactions at iTrade. He even turns Xisuma down when X asks to buy an iTrade pass, forcing him to wait a couple of weeks as penance for poisoning the customers, which is fair enough, really. Said customers have even more options now, as Impulse spends the first half of the week setting up a second floor and filling it with the other villager professions. There's even room for lockers, so each hermit can store any leftover trading items once their inventory fills up, basically to stop Mumbo leaving potatoes all over the place. If you're Wells Knight and Ijevin though, you're just using it as a grocery store, because at 8 stacks of potatoes for 1 diamond, that's actually the cheapest food source on the server.
We are now set on food for like a month. Why not?
Grian is one of the last few hermits to pick up an iTrade pass, and he's actually never traded before, so Impulse shows him around and, while he's got his attention, introduces his latest business venture, loot boxes. For the low price of an entire diamond block, Impulse's pop-up shop will hurl a shulker box full of stuff at you. He even admits that the market value of shulker boxes makes basically everyone a loss for him, but he's got enough diamonds that it doesn't really matter at this point. he's got something even more valuable on his mind: experience levels. After getting up to 1,000 levels last season, he's keen to go even further, so his final episode this week sees him head up to the roof of the Nether and break the bedrock ceiling so he can start on an XP and gold farm. Both Biffa and Python are keen customers at the loot box shop, but they've both got something to gain. Biffa gets a mending book that he can resell at his own shop for 15 diamonds, and Python can resell the shulker boxes at his store. And they're both making a tidy profit. So with his pockets comfortably loaded, Python can continue his ever-growing collection of colourful underwater jello molds. He fills up 2 of them this week, funneling skeletons into one for a convenient XP and drop farm, and setting up an enchanting station in the room next door. He still wants a bit of fresh air though, and what better way to blow off some steam than by blowing up some buildings. Meeting up with 2 other inhabitants of the modern district, namely Cubfan and Ijevin, they destroy the nearby abandoned village and remodel the pathways of the modern district with new and exciting lighting. Biffa has no shortage of sea lanterns either, having dried out most of his ocean temple and converted the central room into an 8x8 area complete with conduit, so any guardians in range die and their drops float into a collection area. He still needs some space to put all his other stuff though, so after a bit of redecorating with glazed terracotta and the handy rotating wrench, one whole wing of the temple is converted into a storage room. Zedaf tries a different trick with the rotatable terracotta. The innards of his temple are no longer accessible to any passers-by unless they know the secret picture that opens the door or possess the rare commodity that is a pickaxe. In all seriousness, Zedaf's idea is a stroke of genius, if only because to open the lock, you'd have to be familiar enough with the wrench mechanic, which is new for Season 6. Even the chances of someone having it on their person is already pretty slim. The downside, of course, is that Zedaf has to remember to keep it handy himself, otherwise he'll be locked out of his own pyramid.
That means if anyone comes along here, even if they know about the wrench trick, and they try and do this, if they do it too speedy, all that's going to happen is this thing's going to get broken, and it's going to make even less sense.
Good Times with Scar builds a pyramid of his own, which at one point must have housed riches of all sorts, but not so much anymore because pirates and all that. This is part of his twin Treasure Island project, where the gold the pirates dug up in one spot is instantly being buried in another. The time not eaten up by convex collabs is also spent setting up a shop of his own, Cherry Computer's Redstone Shop. Inspired mostly by Apple stores, this shop is still very much in development, despite all the protests by Captain Etho.
He's torturing me, I tell you.
Luckily for no one, the server got one more person wielding Fork Lightning, now that Tango has finished a drowned farm of his own. This one is powered largely by such mechanics as sitting for hours at the bottom of the ocean, throwing corpses dozens of meters up, and no one else being online. But even without his pitchfork, Tango is swearing to blow up a mountain, which a large part of his video is dedicated to preparing for. With a part of his mob farm switched to creepers and spiders only mode, he might have just enough boom boom to make it happen. Wells Knight prefers more manual methods of rock removal and just digs a cliff away. He happened to need some stone, you see. The stone he needed went directly into forming a more structural terrain and way domesticated ground for the industrial district. Together with Xisuma, they came up with the general pattern and look fitting the warehouses. And yes, it is very much grey on grey. Such is the price of progress. The leftover cobble is smelted in a newly built super furnace for repurposing on a temporary nether hub for the server. Now spawn-proof and way safer, it can later transform into something truly amazing or remain a grey box for the rest of the season.
But that's the Nether Hub, since it's really kind of a community thing, it's not really something where you just, like, start doing it.
Xisuma provides the server with a community service of his own. It is once again time for End Dimension clear up. Of course, with the server running 1.13 and MC Edit only working on 1.12 worlds, it will take some serious admin foo to clear up generated chunks, which is why he kind of messes it up at first. Another great addition everyone will enjoy is a kelp farm. With a couple of swiping slime machines, X manages to make a reliable setup to conveniently harvest sushi wrappers and also cause humongous amounts of lag for the waiting player. In exchange for your suffering, the ocean provides you with plenty of stuff to smelt and later to smelt with. TFC is also feeling the heat, although that may be thanks to a literal face-to-face encounter with a ghast on his way through the nether. He's not normally one to venture into the open hellscape without a tunnel being set up first, but such is the desire to get out to a mining desert and gather a buttload of sand. He'll also be back later to grab some hardened clay as he plans to replace the walls of Vault 6 with coloured terracotta. For now though, he's hard at work figuring out the practicalities of apocalyptic life. including a power source for the vault, common areas, and living quarters, because if the world's ending, you've got to have somewhere to sit down. False Symmetry's bunker is not as ready because it didn't even have a roof until this week's video. Also, it's not a bunker, but we needed a segue. Sadly, we have no data on how many times she fell off while building it, but whatever. It now looks like a majestic Mother Rotunda watching its younglings head towards the sea. The build is actually pretty impressive, so much so that Joe Hills even alters the roof of the potion stand he was building across the river, just so that he and anyone else using the brewing stations can get an uninterrupted view of all that purple concrete. We're still impressed by it, and we already saw it last week when Xisuma flew by. The exclusive previews courtesy of False going on a bit of a trip IRL. So before her departure, False has herself a last night on the town and visits every single shop available on the server. Except for the ones that haven't been built yet, which is where Grian comes in. Having spent quite a number of shiny blue rocks on iTrade and iTrade accessories, Grian finds himself in a bit of a pickle. But instead of unpickling himself, he decided to dig even deeper and open a pickle jar shop. Not only does it sell sea pickles at a reasonable price, but it also looks like a jar of them and provides any patrons with valuable brined cucumber puns. Perhaps the most impressive part is how he's managed to find the few puns more painful than the ones we write into these scripts.
Buy more pickles, it's a pretty sweet deal. And then right up here, if they're looking for more, there's being stuck in here must be jarring. Get it? Because we're in a jar, never a dill moment in this shop.
What's also of note is that you can't even exit the shop. Once you're there, only an elytra can get you out, which further proves that introducing Grian to post 1.9 features never leads to anything good. Introducing him to Iskall might also lead to mischief, as the two of them are both quite keen on removing the facial hair of a certain Mr. Jumbo.
Give me Zax. Looks like you are being sick, brother.
They each have their own plans, but Grian, at least, has the option of disguising himself as cod. Iskall may as well be some sort of fish by now, as he settled into living in an underwater ravine and is even decorating the floors and walls with his trademark Iskalium. The perks of having an overproductive slime farm. But that's not the only overproductive farm he's concerned with this week, having set up a villager carrot farm in his base and working on decorating the Guardian farm after Cubs finished with the redstone. The Guardian farm goes through a bunch of different redesigns, but it ends up looking pretty spectacular, with high windows, a see-through ceiling, and an aquarium built into the floor. It's likely to see a lot of traffic as the server's best XP farm, but the drops are still reserved for Iskall and Cub to sell at the Black Pearl and split the profits. And finally there's Mumbo, whose reaction to the news he's been evicted by the convex is, where am I going to find a big enough cardboard box?
You have 1 week to pack your stuff up and get out. How can I pack this up? Imagine the size of the pack I would need to pack this.
Yes, the Mumble, thank you YouTube commenters for that name, is in full effect this week. Mumbo's plan is to divide the central disk into 4 biomes and maybe bring in Scar to terraform them at some point in the near future. This being Mumbo though, there's functionality at work below the surface, as the Death Star will eventually be home to a fully operational storage system. His other project this week is to completely flood the bunker, and after he's redesigned the pumpkin and melon farms to make sure they're waterproofed, with a little help from Grian and Iskall, the floor gets carefully eroded and sea life grows up around the walls, and Mumbo reworks the entrance. Now, instead of the water elevator, you just sort of swim in there, whether you're Grian or the drowned.
Doors open though. That's the one thing that Grian does. He leaves doors open.
And that's just about it for this week's recap. Our writer is LoyXP, and my name is Pixel Riffs. I finished a red brick build this week, and I now feel Ijevin and Wells Knight's pain. If you want to check out that video, there's a link to it in the end cards. Don't forget to leave a like while you're still here, and subscribe so you won't miss future recaps. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.
And like that, and I was taking damage, right? So I was like, oh, I must have done it wrong. I'm not doing it right. So I went like this, and then this happened!
Nice! I did it again! What is wrong with you?